G'day everybody and welcome to Rolling Conversations, or I should say welcome back to Rolling Conversations, an idea that we started last year to keep our community connected. And here we are again, unfortunately in lockdown in many parts of New South Wales. So we thought, well, why not get Rolling Conversations back up and going again? So it's wonderful to be broadcasting again, and we have a couple of guests. We're also waiting on another guest, Gus Worland, who should join us at some stage. But we first of all say welcome to Rolling Conversations to Christie Dawes, and also a very special guest, the Honourable Bronnie Taylor MLC, Minister for Women, Mental Health and Regional Youth. So welcome to you both.
Thanks for having us.
So it's great to have you. As a Rolling Conversations really began as a way to connect our community. So we invite everyone that's watching along with us on the Wheelchair Sports New South Wales ACT Facebook page to let us know where you're watching from today, and send in your questions for Christie and for Bronnie. So we did speak about this being a mental fitness special. So we might start there. And Christie, if I can, as a 6-time Paralympian, wonder if I might start with you about what mental fitness really means to you, because it's a term that's starting to gain more traction, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's more, for me, it's more of a holistic approach. And I think people always look at athletes as having to, dig deep and be determined. But for me, my sport is my release from all the stuff that I need to. I don't find that I need to dig deep or try hard for my sport, because it's my absolute pleasure and my enjoyment, and it's what motivates me. I find the stuff that I need to dig deep for and the stuff I need to be mentally fit for is the stuff that happens in everyday life. It's the kids, it's the school, it's the aging parents and dealing with COVID, all of those things, the stuff that is relatable to everybody and doesn't discriminate. That's the stuff you need to be mentally fit for. And I think it really is a whole lot of different things for me. For me, it is being physically fit, but it's also self-care. It's being organised. I think women are notoriously bad for saying yes to everything all the time. Bronnie, I can see you laughing. And I think it's okay for us, when our plate is so full, to say, sorry, no, not today, not now, my plate is full. And I think that is part of our self-care, and part of our mental fitness is knowing when to say no, because we are such, I think humans, it's in our nature to want to give and want to help. And I think sometimes for our own mental fitness, we need to say no.
So let's talk a bit more about mental fitness. Before we do, though, Bronnie, as I mentioned, Christie's a 6-time Paralympian. In fact, between the three of us, we've been to 6 Paralympics. Can I ask you then, just in terms of your sporting background, Bronnie, tell us about the sports that you've played growing up.
Oh, look, I think I always thought I was more fabulous than what I obviously was. But I love sport. I'm a big sport addict, and I was just saying to Christie earlier, I love watching all of the elite athletes. I'm in such admiration for them. But I actually grew up overseas. My dad worked for Qantas, so I lived in Thailand and the Philippines, and I went to international schools, which were American schools. And because they're much smaller, you probably got a bit of a self-inflated sense of being good at something. And I loved baseball and I loved softball and those sort of things. And then I came down to school in Australia and went from being sort of in the top sporting teams to well down near the bottom. But but I've always loved sport. I had very sporty parents. My mum played tennis for New South Wales, and so I'm not quite sure what happened to me. But I love it, and I love tennis, and I loved hockey, and look, now I think as I'm getting older, I love walking, and it's not competitive sport for me, but it's exercise, which is really terrific and really social. But I'm a great couch watcher of sport. I stay up all night watching tennis and watching. I've taken a real liking to wheelchair tennis as well, because that's been really exciting, because we've got that amazing Australian fella. Oh, what's his name? Alex? Is
it Kurt Fernley? What's the guy that looks like Kurt Fernley? Wait, Dylan Alcott.
Yeah, and he's won, and I just love watching him, and I'm amazed by it. So I love watching it.
Yeah, great. Well, now we've made the connection with Christie. You'll be able to watch Christie in Tokyo this year, Bronnie, of course.
I will, and I'll be showing television going, I know her, I've met her, and that'll be my big claim to fame.
Excellent. Hey, now the two of you do a fair bit of travel. I'm interested in mental fitness as it relates to travel. You're both very busy women. Christie, obviously, from the point of view of travelling for your sport, and Bronnie as Minister for Regional Youth. Again, you'd be travelling around the state. What impact does that have on your mental health in general? I imagine being away from home quite often. Christie, I might start with you.
I think it can go both ways. For me, especially having been at home for so long now with my family, sometimes having a bit of a break, a physical break as well as a mental break for them, I think can actually be a good thing. And they say, the absence makes the heart grow fonder. I think that can be true. I think you have to take extra steps to ensure your mental fitness when you travel. You need to get plenty of sleep, and you really need to look at your diet and maintain a healthy diet, and not just think, because I'm away from home, I'll have a great time. You really have to watch those two things, because I think when you're trying to adjust to a time, to a new time zone, that diet and sleep are obviously imperative. So, yeah.
And Bronnie, you do a lot of travel. A similar experience for you, I imagine?
Yeah, look, I do. I spend a lot of time away from home, which is really tough at times, because I think home is really soul food for you, and it's not just your family and things, but it's your environment. So for me, I live down near the Stone Mountains, and I know for me, just to be able to get home and see the landscape and things like that really fills me with a lot of joy. Those sorts of things are really important to me. I think one of the biggest things I find is trying to have some type of routine, because I know in Sydney, I know everyone thinks politicians are so slack and we don't do anything, but when Parliament's sitting, they're really long extended days. So they're you're in there at 7:30, and then you're not home until 1 o'clock in the morning sometimes, because we really love to listen to ourselves speak. And so I think for me, I have to really try and adjust my routine and my timing with that, because I like Christie. I'm one of those people that needs a lot of sleep, and I get quite really foggy without certain sleep. So when I'm working down in Sydney and when I'm traveling, I have a bit of a rule that I don't drink, because for me, I love to enjoy things and do things, and I tend to then lose track of where I am. So for me, it's a bit of a self-discipline thing to be able to stay really focused and to be able to sleep well and to not have that. So I have to set rules for myself, but and I also try to set the rule, and very different to Christie, because obviously I'm not an elite athlete, but I really hate spending more than a week to 10 days away from home, because I find for me, I really need to reconnect. And because I represent rural and regional communities, if I'm not in them, I can't feel what's going on and things like that. So that's a rule I try and set for myself. And I think too, it's really hard with, technology's great, right? But it's also really difficult, because I really do turn my phone off at night and put it onto silent and make sure that, that's the time that I need to sleep. And what I try and do when I'm getting quite wired is I try and put the phone down for an hour. I tell my team, look, I'm going to be out of action for an hour. And one of the guys I work with, the Minister for Police, he's actually done that with an hour walk he does every morning. And I think those sorts of things and setting those boundaries for ourselves is really important to keep our mental fitness up.
Yeah, it's interesting. When we talk about mental fitness, it feels to me like a very personal idea. But I imagine, and Christie, I'll start with you. I imagine that your friends play an important role, do they? Your mates, in terms of your own mental fitness and your role in theirs?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I always talk about creating support networks, and a lot of people will relate that to my sport. I've got my coach and my masseuse, my physio, my strength and conditioning guy, your dietitian, your chef de mission. You've got all that happening around you. But everybody needs a support network. Life is not Facebook. It's not Instagram. It's not social media. So if the proverbial hits the fan and you need to call one person, everybody just needs one person. Who's that going to be? I'm really lucky that I have different support networks for different areas in my life. So, of course, I have my sporting one, but I also have the people who take care of my kids, my gun team of babysitters when I can't be there, or my mum comes in 3 mornings a week to look after my daughter so that I can go training with my husband, who's my coach. And then I've got my parenting mum friends who just give me fabulous life advice about everything. So it's important that everybody identifies their own support network, but you actually have to use it. That's the key, is that you go, oh, well, I can call on him, or he said I could call him whenever I needed to talk or whenever I needed to vent. But so many people don't rely on their support networks. So they think, oh, I wouldn't hassle that person now. They don't want to hear my stuff. I guarantee you that if somebody is offered to lend you an ear, then they actually want to hear what you've got to say. So don't ever be afraid to identify your support networks and use them. And remember that they don't have to be big. It might just be one person.
Well said. Well said, Bronnie. I wonder about, from your point of view, we hear about Parliament. Sometimes we hear it can be quite a torrid environment. But do you have friends that you lean on in there? I mean, what's that like for you?
I do have a few. But yeah, look, it's right. So I was a nurse for 20 years, right? I was a cancer nurse, and I honestly, it's a very unique work environment, and I have a really great team. I have great staff, and I rely on them unbelievably. Like, I wouldn't be able to do anything with what I did without them. And I've definitely got a couple of mates. The Minister for Education, Sarah Mitchell, who's another female, is a really good friend of mine, and we have a joke when things are sort of escalating. We seriously need to have some time, and then we just sit down and have a cup of tea and just have a bit of a chat and a good old natter. And I think what you said was so true. Like, sometimes you think, oh, I don't want to burden someone, but I love when people ring me up and tell me, even the most negative of things going on in their lives, because, it makes you feel better, because you think, oh, thank God there's someone that's having as hard a time as I am, or that's really annoyed them. But also, it's so empowering and such great soul food when you can actually go and try and help someone by lending them an ear. So I think you need those people. And I too, I have my very non-political friends which are actually most of my friends, because I'm a bit of a late starter with politics, and I really value that, and I won't lose them for anything, and I won't lose touch with them, because they're great mates. And then you have the friends that your kids have grown up with that, is really fun as well. I've got really great old school buddies. So when the proverbial really hits the fan, a couple of girls I, went to boarding school with that, you got pretty close because everyone was far away from home. And I'll ring up and no questions asked, you just vent. And I mean, don't you just feel so much bloody better after you have a good vent? It's like, okay, on we go. And I think it's really important to be able to do that. And humans need human contact, which is what I think is so challenging at the moment in terms of those that are in isolation, because we talk about all of these things and they're great, and we can do all these courses online and we can do all those things, but we really do need that human contact. So it's really important as well. You've got to get the mixture of both.
Indeed. Bronnie and Christie, it's a good time for me to bring in Gus Worland, who's just joining us now. So let me add Gus to the call. Gus Worland, founder of Gotcha for Life. Welcome to Rolling Conversations.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone, and lovely to see the Minister talking so much sense. She's one of the only pollies that does. So it's so lovely to hear from you.
Give it time, Gus.
Hey, great to have you on.
You've been so good. Talk about health. You just look fantastic, Gus Worland.
Well, I'm a work in progress like most of us. I'm 30 kilos down from where I started coming off breakfast radio, but still 118, which is I've been told by my wife and my children and doctor that I still need to keep going. So, but no, it's been a good start, and working for Gotcha for Life and not having to get up at 3:30 in the morning has certainly helped me, and I just never feel really tired anymore. I just love what all of us are doing. I think we all put our hands up here on this display and say we're doing good work, and it's just energizing to be able to be a part of it.
Indeed. Hey, Gus, we were talking about the idea of mental fitness, and I wanted to ask you about that term because it's a term that really, in some ways, I've only really heard from Gotcha for Life. So why is that term? Prior to that, we might have said the term mental health. Mental fitness seems to be, an intentional use of language from you.
Absolutely. I think it gives you a positive rather than a negative. Mental health can take you down a negative way of thinking, or you think, oh, it's down the bottom of the barrel. Rightly or wrongly, that's just the way that people look at it. But if you look at mental health compared to mental fitness gives you that real, just like your physical fitness, you can start working on it. You can give yourself a mark out of 10. When I go and see school kids, I go, what's your mark out of 10 for your physical fitness? They can get it pretty much straight away. They normally put a couple of points on it. They're not exactly truthful, but when you say what's your mental fitness score, that's when they struggle. And that's why we have to sort of bring it down to a fitness thing and then give them some exercises for them to become fitter and more mentally fit. And also in that situation, it allows you to know there's a real positive growth that's available rather than feeling like we're going to be really sad or upset or depressed or anxious forever. It's just the starting point, and then we can start working from there. And we'll give you some real practical exercises for you to get your mental fitness up. So that's what it's all about. I'm trying to sort of take away the white coat, the clinical side of things, and make it really more normal and natural, and getting people to have those open, honest conversations. And I think if you start it with fitness, kids will probably, they've certainly told me that they're more likely to run with it than other terms we use.
Yeah, great. Now, Christie, in fact, Gus, you might not have met Christie before. She's a 6-time Paralympian and much loved member of our wheelchair sports community. But Christie, I imagine that term mental fitness, and we spoke about it a little bit earlier, really resonates with you as an athlete.
Yeah, well, I mean, and as Gus said, everyone's happy to talk about their physical fitness, especially if they're in peak condition. But as we're realising, there are so many athletes who are at the top of their field and the top of their game and are struggling with their mental health, and they're coming out and they're talking about it, but it's taken them a long time, and we're realising that they've struggled with it for years and years. And you cannot perform physically at your peak if your mental fitness is lagging and just not there. And it's something that I'm really passionate about, and not wanting to have a stigma around it. There shouldn't be a stigma around it. We don't have stigmas around. I mean, Gus has just gone on and said, well, the doc said I've got to lose more weight and I've got to keep going down. But people aren't as quick to say things like that with their mental health. And I just wish they would, especially blokes. When I was 9 years old, I went to bed and said goodnight to my mum and my dad and my sister, and woke up during the night. My dad had taken his own life, and he was a electrician. He worked for telecom. He had mates. He was funny. He could fix anything. He was a great dad, but nobody knew that his mental fitness and his mental health was really poor. So it's really something we just have to get over and start talking about it and opening it up, the conversations. And Gus, I really appreciate you starting your movement, because it really is so important. And I think, you gorgeous buffheads, you blokes, do not, I think you just think you're there to put food on the table and have a laugh with your kids and take them to Saturday sport, but you are so much more than that. And when you're no longer sitting on that lounge or working in that shed, you are so missed. And I can say that from a really personal point of view, that you guys are so missed. So it's really important that we have these conversations and get mentally fit.
Christie, that's just so beautiful, and thank you for sharing that story with us. When I speak to people that have attempted and survived, every single one of them, bar none, have said they didn't want to die. They just wanted to be out of pain. And that's what I sort of say to groups now, is like, put a line in the sand amongst all the people that you love and tell me that you want them to be in pain in any way. And of course, everyone says, no, of course I don't. I want them to feel safe and loved. Well, we've got to start having some conversations which are really awkward outside of banter, those conversations which are really hard. So we have to, like mental fitness, we have to get into the gym. We have to grind. We can't run a marathon after the first week of a personal trainer. We'll wake up feeling sore. We'll wake up not quite knowing if we ever want to turn up again at the gym. But if we go the second week and the third week and the fourth, if we have conversations which are difficult and outside of our comfort zone, the second, third, fourth, it will become better. You will become more mentally fit. And then we'll have a situation where people will feel more naturally to have a conversation of gravity outside of banter, a conversation where we're not in control. And that's what most blokes will tell me. They want to have the conversation. The awareness has never been better, but the words get stuck right there. We can't quite get them out. And that's what, that's what the minister is backed Gotcha for Life in this really simple way of trying to explain it, humanizing it, and actually giving men and boys and all women and all girls that words just to get out, that little bit of confidence, that whatever it needs, that moment of silence to go, you know what, I'm going to do it. And then out it comes. And all of a sudden that discussion turns into something that could change your life forever. And that's what we need to do. We need to go back to that rather than what we're doing at the moment, which is sort of just holding it in and burying it. It's going to end up hurting us in the long run, burying our emotions.
Indeed. Bronnie, not only are you the Minister for Health, but Minister for Regional Youth as well. Are you seeing a shift in our young people and in their preparedness to have these types of conversations in your travels around the state?
Yeah, look, it's a bit of a tough one. And Christie, I hope we're taping this, because what you just said about men is just like the best encapsulation when you were speaking, obviously with your personal experience, but how you just said that and how there's so much more. So anyway, that was just incredible. I think, look, I am concerned. If I'm just to be really honest and transparent, I'm really concerned about our young people. And that's why I really admire what Gus does, because we know when we look at suicide and we've got a real ability in New South Wales now to be able to look at really real-time data, and hard thing to talk about, right? Like Christie just did that so eloquently and so well, but it's really important that we talk about it. But we know that 50% and up to 70% of people that will attempt to take their own life, so will attempt to suicide, have never put their hand up for help. So what does that tell me as the Minister for Mental Health in New South Wales? That doesn't matter how many beds I put in or how many specialists I put into places. If I'm not getting to over half of those people, we've got to start doing something a bit different. And that's why organisations like Gus's are so important. But it's really hard when you're in government and you're funding things, because everyone wants evaluations and they want documented evidence, and they want to know the actual benefit of what that's going to do. But what they don't understand too sometimes, and that's the challenge as well, is that one intervention can save a life. So one person who thinks that they might have been having lots of terrible thoughts for quite some time, they might be a bloke, they might have decided they didn't want to share that with anyone because, it'll be all right, it'll pass. And it might be that one moment that they decide, you know what, I just can't do it anymore today, and they're going to take an action that's going to end their life. But they might read a sign, or they might run into someone, or they might just, and that will stop that event. And that's what we have to get to, and that's what we have to do. We are seeing, an increase internationally in self-harm. When we see an increase in self-harm, that can be indicative of what's going to end up to be an increase in suicide. On a positive note, in New South Wales last year, we had a reduction in suicide. Every suicide's tragedy, right? Every suicide is a loss because it affects everybody. But to see with the year that we faced that we actually had a decrease is telling me that that's got nothing to do with me or the government. That's all the people on the ground doing the really good work that they do, like us and like those different organisations, and also our clinicians and our mental health teams. And we just announced too that I've worked with the College of Psychiatrists, and we've developed youth and adolescent specialised mental health teams, and we'll be landing 10 of those this year, working up to 25 over 4 years. And I'm really pleased about that, but we need to do better in this space, but we need to get there in intervention as well, and we need to make sure that it's early intervention and that it's normalised and it's talked about in our schools. I've been really gung-ho about a school nurse program that we rolled out. When I first came into Parliament, I kept approaching everyone saying, I really think this is an option. And look, I'm biased, I was a nurse, but people often don't feel that they can talk to a counsellor or talk to a psychologist. They do really important work, and we absolutely really need them. But sometimes in a setting, what you'll find is someone might come and talk to you about something else, but then open up about their mental health. And we just had the first evaluation of the school nurse program, and it's just like beyond all of my expectations, the positivity that's there and the lives that are changing and the fact that kids are staying at school. So my ideal, I suppose, as the ministers, I just want to build this web of support, but it looks different for everybody. So what I'm going to feel comfortable in, Mick's going to be different to what you may feel comfortable in and what Christie might feel comfortable in. So we have to make sure that we have all different types of interventions and types of ways of doing things. But, you know, one thing that fills me with absolute hope is that when you see people going into schools like Gus and you see people normalising talking about how they feel, and for me, I love the whole mental fitness thing, because just because you have an episode or you have a period, I liken it to when I was a breast cancer nurse, so that I would really support someone in that really intervention stage, and we get a plan and they'd have surgery and they'd have their treatment. And then they do really well because we're really good at treating breast cancer. Like we absolutely rock when it comes to that. But, you know, a couple of years down the track, they might have a bit of a scare and they might want to ring me again and talk to me, and I'm there for them and I'm going to take them through. And that's how I think we have to treat this, is that, you know, we're going to have ups and downs. Some of us are going to need interventions, some aren't, but there's no single fix here. But the biggest thing we can do is put our hand up and talk to each other and know that there are services out there. And, you know, sometimes I get really worked up when, you know, we hear that, oh, well, I can't access something or I can't. And I absolutely appreciate that that's absolutely right. And it's my job to make sure that you can. But what I say to people is, if you don't have any luck that time, you got to ring again, and you got to try again, and you got to try someone else, and you got to try, you know, keep going, don't stop, because we need you to reach out, because we're there to help.
Bronnie, thank you. I've got a question there I want to ask of everyone, but specifically Gus as well. Before I do that, I want to acknowledge a message we got from Beck about a suicide in her family. So, Beck, thank you for sharing that. I hope you feel supported tonight, and I'm glad you're online with us and being a part of tonight's conversation. So thank you for your message. Gus, Deb Harding asked, do you have any tips in terms of conversation starters and ways that we can begin that conversation?
Yeah, so these conversation starters can be a little bit difficult, can be a little bit awkward, because we're going outside of banter. We're going outside of where we're comfy, going outside of where we are on a normal basis. So big deep breath and we go in, basically, is the way that I sort of look at it. And I normally start a conversation by trying to be as vulnerable as I can be with that person. And of course, depends on who you're talking to. If it's someone that you absolutely love and adore, a member of your family or a close friend, I deal with it this way. They know where I'm at. They know that they can cry with me. They know that I'll probably hug them even if they don't ask for it. So I've got a bit of a advantage in terms of starting that conversation where I'll go, I just want to tell you about what's going on in my world at the moment, and try to build a really safe place. If you build a safe place, then most people will feel comfortable enough to have a conversation of gravity. So we had a night down before lockdown in Sydney. We had 257 blokes turn up at Avalon Surf Lifesaving Club. Every single one of those blokes turned up thinking they were going to be the only one in the room. I'd bought them little mini barbecue. Normally I sort of work it out. We'll probably get 20 blokes tonight. So I got one of those mini ones. There was 250 blokes that didn't get a sausage that night. But they walked out 3 hours later going, I can't believe what I just heard. I can't believe that everyone is going through a very similar thing. And I thought I was the only one. So don't think for a moment, Deb, that you're in a situation where that person's probably not feeling how you're feeling, and they probably are worried like you are for them. So it's just the initial icebreaker, which is the hard one. So if you sit there and look them in the eye, or go for a walk with them if you don't want to have a face-to-face, or go for a drive is another really nice way, and just start the conversation by saying, I love you, I really care for you, and I want to tell you something that's going on in my world, and just start that conversation. Leadership through vulnerability, I think, is the way forward. So that's how I start conversations. If I don't know the person and I'm really just trying to help, and I get that a lot, a bit like the minister, a lot of people just come up to us and say, this is my stuff, and they just unload. And that's the moment where you need to really be very careful and understanding and appreciative that it's a very difficult thing for that person to have done. And then you have to pretty much stop whatever you're doing, be late for your next appointment, which is exactly what happened to me tonight, and just sit in that moment and be appreciative of how hard that information was to download. And then listen. We've got two ears and one mouth. We should use them in that in that sort of portion. So being a good listener, especially for a bloke, is difficult. I'm not good, my wife tells me, so I'm trying to get better at it. You just need to listen, and you need to not necessarily come up with a fix, but just know that you're then part of their village, part of their team that can help them move forward. And I've spent that many time over the last few months going to doctor's appointments with people that I don't even know. And I said, if I turn up at that doctor's surgery, will you be there? And they ring me and say, I'm at 11 o'clock, and they never think I'm going to be there. And I'm sitting out the front going, good on you, blah, blah, blah. Thanks. I've done that many times. You've just got to jump out of your comfort zone and just try to be the best person you can be.
Well said, Gusty. I think there's so much in that for everyone that's watching online. So thank you. At the same time, I want to acknowledge Meg, who posted a message there for us about suicide. So Meg, again, thank you for sharing. We will go through the mental health numbers and connections at the end of this rolling conversation to make sure that anyone who is vulnerable tonight or feeling lonely or in need of an ear, we'll give you those numbers. So Meg, thank you for your message, and I'm really glad, like Beck, that you're online with us tonight. You're connecting with us. Christie, I just wanted, picking up on what Gus was talking about there, what have you found is a way to connect with your friends and family around these types of ideas?
I'm brutally honest, and I know that a conversation can save a life. And if I'd have had one hint of what was happening with my dad, I would have had a conversation with him. And I do wonder that all the friends and family who turned up to his funeral, were they all incredibly surprised and shocked? Or did some of them have some inkling and went, oh, maybe I should have said something or done something? And it's too late for that now, but we can't afford to tiptoe around this. And this is not BS. And I've got a great friend of mine who's a tradie, and, they're all so jokey and happy and tough. And I rang him the other day and I said, oh, have you knocked off work? Is it a good time? And he goes, no, I'm having a mental health day. And I said, well, why? Are you okay? Do you want to talk about it? And, this guy had been doing work for me when I had my baby, and he had to put the toilet door on for me when he was renovating my bathroom because I had to pee every 20 minutes like a pregnant woman does. So, he's seen me breastfeed. So we know each other, we're comfortable. But, as you said, Gus, that was exactly it. He said, I'm having a mental health day, and I could hear pain in his voice. And I said, well, I'm here. Talk to me. And he went, oh, I'll be all right. And I said, well, my door is always open. And I said, just talk to me. And, he knows about my dad. We worked together for ages, and he knows my story, and he knows I don't judge, and he knows that he was in a safe space. But, blokes can't get it out because they don't do the talking. So I'm keeping a close eye on him, and we'll just see what happens. But, yeah, as soon as you said blokes it gets stuck, I really related to that, and it tears me apart.
We need to build the emotional muscle, and that's where it gets back to that mental fitness stuff. And guys nod along and go, okay, give me the words. How can I start the conversation? And technology's been another thing. It's really stood up to the test of time through COVID. So if you don't think you can get the words out, then send a text or FaceTime, or just do it in some other way. Just let someone know what's truly going on. Take the mask off with at least someone. And when I talk to old blokes in particular, I don't want to be that whinging bastard telling people how I'm feeling. It's like, people want to hear. People love you, mate. People want to know. People don't want you worrying alone. It's actually tougher to talk than it is to bury your emotions. So, it's time to man up, speak up, not man up, shut up like we were told all those years ago. So times have changed. We know things are better now if you open up. So use it as a strength rather than a weakness.
Yeah, well said, Gus. What a shame we're almost getting to end of time. We've run over time, but I don't really care. Could talk to you guys all night, to be honest. And it's important. It's an important conversation, so why clip it short? But just in terms of getting towards the end of the conversation, have we got anything, I suppose, messages for people who might be in isolation? And really, that's where Rolling Conversations came back this week, because we felt like people might be doing it a bit tough. in isolation. So any sort of messages for people about that tonight might be watching on, or when they watch the replay might be doing it a bit tough, and some ideas perhaps of what we can do in isolation. Bronnie, I might start with you.
I was going to say, go to Gus.
Yeah.
Look, I am in isolation because I was considered a close contact from an event. So I guess I can only talk about what I'm trying to do myself, and I'm just trying to connect with a heap of people that I haven't for a while, and just have good chats. And I'm just taking a bit of time to chill out. And I must say, sometimes, my thoughts play with me, and I did have a moment this morning. I really miss my husband. I really miss my kids. But it is what it is. And I just thought, right, okay, how can I focus myself? So routine, trying to throw myself up and down some stairs here to, get a bit of exercise. I'm really jealous because some of my colleagues, who are isolating in 2-bedroom apartments in Sydney, are like doing 14,000 steps. And I'm like, how is that possible? But I'm Zooming people, I'm doing stuff. I think we just have to take the time to read a book that we haven't read before, or, I've got my iPad stacked up on some interior design magazines, and I've got some time. So yeah, and I've got great, the thing is too, you realise I've got this most amazing friends that are coming and talk to me over the balcony, or ringing up, or just dropping a coffee sort of at the door, and I can go down, and I feel really grateful for that.
Great, thanks, Bronnie. Gus, I'm going to go to you last. Christie, any thoughts for our community, who many of whom you know really well? Yeah.
Yeah, I think just self-care. Look after yourself. Bathe, sleep, eat, talk to people. One thing I did this week, because all of my races keep getting cancelled, I had Gold Coast Marathon cancelled on me an hour ago, and I've trained for it for a year because we've had nothing else to train for. So I've created a bucket list. So although we can't do these things right now, I think it's really important to have somebody to love, to do something you love, and to have something to look forward to. And I've made my bucket list this week that's got a whole bunch of crazy stuff on it. Jumping out of a plane is one of them. I would never jump out of a perfectly good plane. I think that's madness. But I've got a whole bunch of other stuff on it. And that's my thing. We can't do these things right now, but we will be able to do them. So make plans and take care of yourself.
Yeah, well said, Christie. One of the other things I think about tonight too is that I'm really thrilled now that Bronnie knows your story, that Gus knows your story. So when you go around in Tokyo in not many weeks now, you'll have another 2 supporters there alongside our community who love you dearly. So thanks very much, Christie, for your contribution tonight, and it's been wonderful to have you.
No worries. Thanks for having me. It's been good. Lovely to meet you, Bronnie. Lovely to meet you, Gus. Love to work with you.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely do that. That makes a lot of sense. And what you said makes perfect sense, having a bit of hope. Like I spoke on telly today about a lack of hope in my mum at the moment and trying to get her gears going. She's in her late 80s in Kalara, lives by herself, always been really independent, reasonably bossy, and sort of very strong lady. Brought my brother and I up by herself. And she's just awesome.
Bossy for that.
She's awesome, but she's really finding it hard. There's just so much uncertainty around. So having hope is a huge thing. But answering the question about people, especially in New South Wales in lockdown, is to try to keep it as simple as possible for the next sort of 10 days or so, because we're a few days into it already. But we are physically isolated, but we are not isolated completely. And as I said earlier, technology has been brilliant through COVID. So like Bronnie said, get hold of those people that you haven't spoken to in a while. When I do corporates, at the end of my chat, I say, everyone get your phones out. And if people can do that now, or if you don't have your phone, remember, it's quite a simple little process. Get your phone out and find someone in your phone that you haven't spoken to in at least 3 months. And so you go, okay, so people are scrolling through their phones. They find the person. I go, send them a text message, but you have to send them the text message exactly the words that I say. And people start going, oh, okay. So they've hands up if you found the person. Everyone's found it. Right, okay. I want you to write the text message, I love you. And people start giggling and laughing and, oh, can I change the person? I go, no, just hang with me. We're in a safe place. I love you. I miss you. see you soon, kiss, hug, and send it. And then we'll sit in silence until we hear that with all the buzzers going off with the replies. I said, you'll get 3 replies. You'll get, are you drunk? Was this for me? Or I love you too. It's been too long, blah, blah, blah. Or variants of that. Or someone will phone up. And they'll phone up, we'll put them on speakerphone and we'll explain what we're doing. And they'll go, I honestly was worried about my mate. I was worried about my girlfriend. All we're doing there with a little bit of fun is just connecting. And connection is the key. I believe that the death of suicide is through loneliness. So we just need to connect up with the people that are in our phones. They may not speak to them every day. They're not your family, your husband, your absolute number ones, but they're people in your phone. You may as well let them know you're thinking about them. And it may not be that big a deal for you, but imagine what it could do for that person to get that message, go, wonder what's this all about? And then they'll go, oh, I remember that night that I had when I heard Bronnie speaking and she was really lovely and I haven't seen her for ages and Christie's talking about. It starts a conversation. It starts our mind being really positive. So that's what I'd throw out to all our community tonight. I love you. I miss you. See you soon. Kiss, hug, kiss, hug. Send that out. Send 5 of them tomorrow and see what responses you get. I promise you'll be helping the person you send it to, and it's a really good laugh for yourself as well. Just stay connected. Connection is the absolute key. We are only physically isolated. That's all at the moment.
Yeah, beautifully said, Gus. Thank you. We will finish up. Let me just say for anyone that the conversation tonight has activated anything for you, the Lifeline number is 131114, or you can go to lifeline.org.au. You can go to gotchaforlife.org as well. And other service providers are Headspace, Reach Out, and Beyond Blue. So there's plenty of support out there for you. Thank you to everyone in our community and the broader community that's jumped online tonight and enjoyed the conversation. We had many messages I couldn't get to, but so many people saying how much they've enjoyed the conversation. I'm glad, Gus, that you've met Christie, and Bronnie, you've met Christie as well, because you'll, as I said earlier, have a superstar to follow in Tokyo now at the Paralympic Games. And it's been wonderful to spend time with you all on Rolling Conversations tonight. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great to meet you guys. Thanks for having me.
You too.
Thank you,
Good night,
guys.
everyone.
You play that guitar out. Play it out with that guitar behind you there, mate. Do you play those?
Oh, you're just breaking up a bit there, Gus. I think I can't hear you very well. See you guys.
Right.
Good night.
See you.
Bye.